Welcome back to the Perfect Match Franchise Podcast. This is our Owning a Franchise series where you get to hear what franchise ownership is really like from the people who have done it today. We have our guest, Ben Heusser, who is a Crumbl franchisee in Pocatello, Idaho. He's here today to talk about his journey from tech sales to becoming a successful Crumbl owner. Thanks for coming on, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dylan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So do you mind kind of let me know what you were doing before you started your franchise, before you got into it?
Yeah, you bet. I started as a law enforcement sheriff's deputy way back in the day. And at the sheriff's office, we used a software that allowed us to track our reports and do dispatching out of and do some different things that way. And I became really familiar inside and out with that software. So I went to work for that company. And I'd been doing that for about 8 or 9 years. And the people who started Crumbl are from a little town in Idaho called Preston. And I happened to know the family really well. And when Crumbl started, I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. But I really didn't take too much of an interest to it or in it until maybe after they'd been in for about a year or two. And then I had the opportunity to purchase or acquire the store in Pocatello. So that's how I got from tech company to Crumbl franchise partner.
Awesome. Cool. So what unit number approximately were you then?
We were early. I want to say top 50 probably.
Oh, okay.
And now I think there's 900 plus in the US, and we've expanded into Puerto Rico and Canada. So we're
Yeah,
growing pretty substantially.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. So when you were in the kind of franchise searching phase, did you really look at other options or did you just kind of hear about Crumbl and that was your sole focus?
This one fell into my lap. I knew the previous owners, and like I mentioned, I knew the family of the Crumbl owners themselves who started the franchise. And I just reached out to the family one day and said, hey, if you're ever interested in selling the store, we'd be interested. And I kind of had heard that that's what was happening. And then we started the discussions, and the rest is history from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, being especially it's really cool for people to hear, now they're a big franchise, but you were there when they were, quote unquote emerging. What was it
Yeah.
kind of like that first year of business when you were, with them in their growth phase, that first year for you?
Yeah, growth phrase is a good way to put it. We've almost had it for about 4 years now, and when we first started, we had 8 employees, and we grew so quickly with revenue and menu changes, and we had to really bolster staff pretty quickly. So we had to kind of grow quickly. I took a brief break from the tech job to jump in with 2 feet and kind of help get things going during the transition. I wanted to learn the business inside and out. So I kind of became an owner operator in the store most days. Then we sort of transitioned leadership to a manager, and I was able to step back into the tech side of things. And from there, we've just kind of managed the ups and downs of franchise owning. But overall, it has been a really good experience.
Yeah. How long was that like operator phase? Was it like a year or was it just a few months or?
It was pretty steady for 6 months. And then I would say the next 6 months was kind of a 50% in the store, out of the store, to now it's where I'm pretty much absentee.
Yep.
Um, but we have good managers in the store. We have good leadership there. I'm pretty close to the store, so if I need to head up there, I can. But we have a good crew in there, good leadership, which makes it really nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What was that kind of scaling period? Like, was there a considerable amount of managers you had to go through? Was it just a couple? What was that kind of like? Really, getting the people in place to really run the day to day for you.
Yeah, that's been probably the biggest challenge is finding a good manager in the store. We've been through a handful of them, but every manager needs to really learn how to be a baker, which is kind of our entry level position, so that they can learn all the different things inside the store, all the different tasks, all the different stations that we kind of rotate everybody through. And then we have what are called shift leads in the store. And those are kind of mini managers that manage the group of people that are working on the shift at any given time. And then we have the manager who kind of oversees all of that. To be a manager at Crumbl, you really have to have that full experience. You have to be able to be a baker. You have to have been a shift lead. And so when we hire, we kind of set that expectation right out of the gate that, hey, I'm not just hiring a manager off the street with no experience. I need somebody who's grown from the inside, who knows the day-to-day operations, who has been there, done that, who can answer the questions that our staff might have. And really, that's kind of the heavy lift. We experience any amount of turnover that's pretty normal for everybody else from the baker and shift lead standpoint, but a manager is that rock solid person that you can kind of weather those storms if you have a good one in place.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Was it pretty do you feel like that operator experience really helps you in picking that manager because you know it so well, right? That you have that experience? Is that a big kind of benefit for you when you find those managers? You know not only who to look for, but who to look out for because you know what the problems are going to be faced by them.
That's right. I had the experience of jumping in, like I mentioned, 2 feet and learning the ins and outs of top to bottom of the store. And the whole purpose of that was so that I could be that person that knew everything. I'm not so much of a control freak, but I do want to have the answers. When somebody reaches out and says, hey, what do we do here? I don't want to be the owner that just says, I don't know, figure it out, or I don't know, call tech support at Crumbl. I want to be that owner that knows the business. And so my employees and my manager feel comfortable and confident that they can come to me with those situations, those problems, those concerns, and we can get those resolved very quickly. I've kind of become a handyman in the store with different appliances that we have, like ovens and mixers and things. So, when something breaks down, I can usually fix it right now, which has been kind of fun. But we have about 20 employees throughout the whole year, and managing schedules, managing employees, managing a manager. We've had 2 this year, so we've got one right now that's doing really well, and we hope to incentivize her and keep her interested in being here for a lot longer. And her and I kind of coordinate all the time about what needs to happen, the processes that we're going through, taking the feedback that she's giving me about what the needs are in the store as she's in there for the day-to-day operations, and then we kind of evaluate things together, and then we roll out the new processes, or we hire an additional resource, or we create a position that's needed that does X, and so it's really good to have that good working relationship with the manager. But also, like you mentioned, we got to have people that believe in the mission, that they are reliable, that they're confident, that they can lead out. And we are really kind of close in our relationship to make sure that we're still aligned with what needs to happen with corporate Crumbl too.
Yep. Yeah, and that makes sense. And it's funny because you mentioned a word there that's I don't want to say controversial, but you hear a lot online, which is absentee ownership.
Right.
Talk to me about what now being, you've lived what a lot of clients that we have want to do, what that's like in your day to day now, going from, being fully employed to owning the business, now running it, absentee.
Yeah, the biggest reason that we looked at having a business was one that we didn't have to be in every day. We wanted something that could run without us being there as much as possible, and just build another revenue stream of income for us. We have a really good couple of really good jobs, my wife and I, and we make sure that we have the means necessary to support our family. But we were looking for that extra revenue stream, and a business was a great way to go about this. And we really like the franchise opportunity because there's kind of a blueprint behind what we need to do. And so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just kind of falling in line with what Crumbl Corporate sets out, so that we make sure that we follow along. And being an absentee owner is good and bad. You mentioned it's kind of a controversial word a little bit. We have a good manager, and we have that good relationship that we are communicating several times throughout the day, even to make sure that things are being addressed, that shipment has been ordered, that supplies are in house, that we talk about everything throughout the day. So when I say absentee, it's not like I own the business and I just don't do anything with it at all. It literally is, I'm doing it remotely around my job schedule, around my family life, and making sure that the store has what they need when they need it. And so I do still have a really good pulse on things, but it is nice to not have to be there every single day.
Right. Yeah. So distinction between absentee and passive, right? It's
That's
not
right.
you don't
Yeah,
just sit and collect the checks, but
that's right.
you don't need to be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what's your vision, in general, well, obviously within Crumbl, but just in general, moving forward.
Yeah, I'm always looking for other things. Right now, we only own one store. I have several owner friends who own multiple Crumbl stores, and there's the opportunity there for us to acquire other stores. We just haven't found the right opportunity to do so. But we are looking at other franchises. We are looking at other business opportunities, and we're kind of just some of those people that just now we've been in it. We want more. We want just a little bit more, and let's diversify a little bit. And maybe eventually the tech sales job can go on the back burner, and we can have businesses that we run. And there's good and bad to the tech sales job, and there's good and bad to owning businesses. And so you take the best of any of those worlds and try to mesh those together and make a good life out of things. So yeah, I don't know what's next, but we're definitely always in the market for something new.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think your advice would be? Because I think that's a lot of people want to get to where you're at, right? They actually have an absentee business. What do you think your advice would be for somebody who's, they just started looking? What should they look for, and what should they look out for?
Yeah, I think having the ability to understand what the business is that you're buying. So understanding what it is, making sure it's something that you like. I think that's important. Don't just buy a business to buy a business. But I also, one of the things that was holding me up, I think, for several years in buying a business was I didn't think I could have the means to buy a business. And now there's all sorts of resources out there for an individual to buy a business, whether it's an SBA loan or some different financing options. But there's a way to buy businesses, and I feel like now that I understand that, that's kind of opened my eyes to be able to say, hey, there's more out there that I can go acquire. I can go look for the right business now because there's a way for me to do it. Whereas before I didn't know that I could, and so having a good idea of what the business is that you want to buy or start, and then understanding that there's a way to buy it. There's a way to acquire businesses. And then from there, I think you have to surround yourself with good people. You have to have good leadership. If you're going to be in the business every day, fantastic. If you're not going to be in the business most days, then you've got to have good leadership in the store that kind of reflect the values and vision that you have for that business. And we've been able to do that for the most part with a lot of our leadership. And that's really helped us sleep at night when we're not there, knowing that there's good people taking care of our business for us.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. I think for anybody to say, hey, someone with your background, right? You've already you were hesitant, right? And now you're in
Yeah.
this one of the best franchises in the country, and you've been there and been successful. But even still, you were hesitant when looking to make that purchase.
I was, and I think it's important that if you set your mind to it, just go do it. Get it. Don't let the doubt creep in. I for so long had that doubt and just always let it hold me back. And once I said, you know what, I'm going to go get this, it seemed like everything opened up, and I started to see things that I missed before. And so I would just encourage anybody out there to just find that business that you like or you want, find that opportunity that you feel like would be good for you and your family, and find a way to get it, and it'll work out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What do you think the biggest sort of thing that Crumbl's helped you with as a corporate franchise? What have they really kind of done to make it easy for you? Was it the training? Was it the support? Was it everything? What kind of really, made it, I don't want to say easy, but easier to be successful than maybe it would have been without them?
The biggest thing that I've appreciated with Crumbl is there is a good support team. We are assigned a representative from inside of corporate that works with us pretty closely. I can reach out to that resource at any time and ask for anything I need. and they are very responsive. We did go through a couple of weeks of training. We had a field trainer on site when we took over the business. So it was like somebody was here holding our hand while we transitioned into the business. They are being proactive right now in a little bit of a rebrand. So you'll see some different things with Crumbl pretty soon where we're adjusting, we're growing, we're trying to stay fresh, and that was one of the concerns that I had when buying this business is I thought, well, how long is this wave going to last? We're going up right now. When are we going to hit that top and start coming down? And this year has been great for us from a revenue standpoint because of the adjustments to the menu and different items that we're offering now. It has really opened the door for us to grow as a business, which has been really good. You worry that sometimes we just get set in our ways and we just kind of go with the punches and kind of roll with the motions. But Crumbl has always been looking for ways to improve revenue, to make our businesses grow. And they've also let some of the owners have access to internal counsels. So we can give our input from the franchise perspective, from an owner's perspective, back into the franchise, and they listen and they take some of that information and they apply it. And I've really appreciated that this year, especially. We've had some really good councils and discussions, and there's always surveys coming out asking us how we feel. And so it's not one of those franchises where the leadership is just leading and guiding the store and the franchise based on their own vision. They're truly listening to us as franchise partners, and I've appreciated that a lot this year.
Yeah, and that's such a big deal, right? Because it's not all franchise systems are created equal for a lot of reasons. And I think a lot of people get very hung up on, and it's important, investment and return, but man, you're really joining a partnership. So understanding who you're joining with and that you align with the vision is, in my opinion, almost as important as anything. And it sounds like that's, part of why it's been so successful on top of, what you're doing individually. But yeah.
It has. And we are in a community where we are supported, but we are also involved in the community. And that's another thing that Crumbl really encourages us to do is get out in the community and be an active visual member of your community and provide a lot of support to local schools through donations and fundraisers and different things. So we're able to get out and be visible in our community, which I appreciate too. So sometimes I've heard, other franchises and other businesses, it's pretty restricted on what you can do in that area, but it feels like Crumbl has done a good job of promoting us to be able to do those things. And, we have a major university in our backyard that we've partnered with and done some really fun things with. And we employ a lot of their students as kind of a little bit of a trade-off there, which has kind of been fun. And so Crumbl really has taken this year especially and looked at, okay, how can we grow the business revenue perspective? How can we give owners the flexibility and the ability to grow their own businesses? And can we take feedback that they provide to us and take all that feedback and discuss it amongst the council and then employ actionable items off of that? And Crumbl has been able to do that for us this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Great. Well, I mean, in general, do you think the system has changed dramatically, or has it been just kind of somewhat of a shift as they've scaled in terms of a corporate level? Because that's a question I get a lot about fast growing brands, which Crumbl is arguably as fast as it gets, right? You going from the early stage to now where they're much more mature. Has it been a big change? I mean, obviously they're still taking your input, but what's that feel been like?
It's been a big change. I think from the biggest change aspect of things would be the way that we're creating our menus. So if you've been to a Crumbl lately, you may have noticed that there are still 6 items on the menu, but a couple of those items are now dessert items. And so those dessert items that we have are a lot more labor intensive now to make. And so it's taking a little bit longer for us to make those certain flavors. And then recently, within the last couple of weeks, actually the start of November, there's 8 menu items on our menu. So that's creating challenges and operational changes too. So The good thing about it though is before they roll anything out, they've run it through stores, they've tested it, they've put the kibosh on some things. They've rolled something out to the stores to test, and they're like, "Whoa, that didn't go," and they're good enough to pull that back and say, "Nope, let's do something different." And so right now we're going through some of those things where we're doing some unique things that we've never done, and operationally we're assessing if it's working, if it's feasible, if it's popular, if it's generating revenue, if it's keeping our costs the same, that it should be, and not, so it's not relational. We don't want revenue to skyrocket, but our costs just follow it, so it's proportional at that time, right? So we're doing a lot of that. And that's what I appreciate about Crumbl is it's not like we just rest on our laurels. It's like, what's new? What could we be doing different? What could we be doing better? Let's test it out. If it works, let's roll it out to all the stores. And the challenge is when we first implement something, yeah, there's challenges there. It's new, it's different, it's change. But when we start to apply the operational stuff that needs to happen, now it's like we don't even notice that we have 8 menu items. When the first week it was like, oh my gosh, we have all this change. How are we going to do this? Now it's like, oh yeah, we're good. It's just we just have adopted the process that works. And so that's like in any business, right? You want to have any business to grow and develop, and there's going to be change. There's going to be good change and bad change, and just being able to adapt and overcome some of those challenges. And just like I remember a couple of times, I can't remember specific instances, but I just remember thinking tomorrow is a new day, and the day after that will be another day. And then before long, you're out of that hard time with the business. And I think it maybe had to do with when I didn't have a manager for a little bit of time. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But every day we turned the lights on, everybody showed up, they did the same thing that they normally did. And before long, we had a new manager hired, and she was going through training. And so it's kind of like, we got to just take it one day at a time, and just know that the business is going to be as good as we put into it. So we've kind of adopted that motto that let's invest heavily with our time and efforts to make sure that the business is good. And Crumbl's done a great job to support us.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And I think that's a cool point to talk about, is like kind of the natural fear of being a business owner and kind of the day to day. Who did you usually turn to in that? I mean, I'm sure it was a lot of people. Was it other franchisees? Was it corporate? Was it just friends and family? I mean, how, was it motivation online? I mean, because that's the part of business that I think doesn't get talked about enough, is those, like you said, those days where you just say, man, wasn't the best, but tomorrow's another one. What got you through those moments?
Luckily, I have tied in with a lot of other franchise partners, and I knew quite a few franchise partners before I purchased, and I went to them beforehand and just asked them about their business. And I wanted to try to learn as much as I could before I took the plunge myself. And then we did take the plunge, and Crumbl was great to support us when we first were going through that acquisition, and we kind of went live, if you will, that first week. And then after that, it's kind of like, well, then they've got to move on to other people and get them going. And so it was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is ours, and we have to now take it and go with it. But because I had surrounded myself with some other franchise partners from Crumbl that I knew, I was able to pick their brains quite a bit and ask them about different things. And then sometimes it just was, man, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I just had to adapt that mentality that, I don't know what's wrong with the oven, but I'm going to figure it out, so that we can use the oven, and just little things like that you just have to have that mentality of things are going to happen every day. Challenges are going to arise every single day, sometimes multiple challenges a day. And you just have to kind of eat those things in small bites and just patiently work through those challenges and those problems. Just remember, like, tomorrow is going to be a different day. And we've really, as we've done that, the stress level has gone down, because we're able to manage that a lot better. Whereas, first time I heard the oven went down in the store, it was like panic mode. I'm like, I don't know what to do, And so then you have to remember, like, well, that's the first time you ever did that. Now, the next time it happens, you're going to know what to do, and you're going to know how to react and fix it. And it's the same with a lot of other things in a business is we're just going to have challenges every single day. Sometimes they're new things that we've never experienced. And sometimes there are things that you've been through that you just have to go through again and just battle. I don't know. Owning a business is tough. I mean, there's great things about it, but it is definitely tough too.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure, for you, it's got to be nice because you're probably a big validation partner to also then get to extend that to new franchisees, right, or incoming franchisees. Yeah,
That has
yeah,
been a really fun opportunity when I get calls from other franchise partners that say, "Hey, I was referred to you by so and so, and you had a similar challenge, or we're about the same size in revenue volume. What are some of your operational standards that you've got in the store that could help us?" And that's been fun to kind of turn around and give them our playbook and say, "Hey, this is what's helped us. Try some of these things and see if they work for you." Because we had a lot of people kind of do that at the first part, and we just kind of gathered all that information and kind of put it in one spot, and then we thought we'll need this one day. I don't know what for, but we'll need it. And now it's like I get to help a new franchise partner that comes in that gets referred to me, and I get to help them with whatever they're looking for. So that's been helpful. I mean, we can't do it alone. We got to bond together. We got to help each other out. That's really important also to help our business be successful.
great. Well, awesome. Well, yeah, I really appreciate your time. I think there was a lot to learn there from your success. Anything else that someone listening should think about? If they're thinking about getting into whether it's a Crumbl or just any franchise.
I always get that question about, do you regret buying a franchise versus a small business, a personal business, a private business? And I would just say, for me, the opportunity for us to be as absent as possible while plugging into an established blueprint and having a roadmap that we just kind of follow has been super helpful for me. Yes, we have the challenges of being kind of restricted in some areas, but as I mentioned, Crumbl has been great to kind of let us grow. And so I wouldn't say that they've released the reins a little bit, but maybe that's a good way to think of it, to where now we have the responsibility to go out and grow our own business. And now that's when the fun work starts to happen. And so anybody who's considering a franchise, if you're looking for an established blueprint, follow this plan, just plug yourself into it. A franchise is a definite way to go. It's by far been a better experience than starting a business from scratch, in my opinion, because you're running the risk of starting something that hasn't been proven. And with a franchise, most of the franchises that I see out there are good franchises, and you can plug yourself into those, and you get the support and the help that you need from the people who have been doing it a lot longer than you, and they can provide that assistance to you. So don't hesitate. Find the right system, find the right franchise for you. There's financing available. Trust me, you can find it, and go find the things that you want to do and build something great.
Awesome. Well, don't think it can be said any better than that. It was good talking to you. Thanks again. Until
It's
next
great to
time.
visit with you, Dylan. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.